All right, get started.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sally Flashberger. I'm with the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, and I lead our Living Well grant. And I'm joined by two of my great coworkers here. I'll let them introduce themselves. Tammy, why don't you go first?
Hi, I'm Tammy Jackson. I am the Public Policy and Legislative Liaison for the board. And Caitlin?
Hi, my name is Caitlin McNamara. I am the project coordinator for the Living Well project at the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities.
So we're so excited to be here today for our third in the series of 4 for our housing webinars. Today, we're going to be talking about technology and supports and services that you can receive to live independently in the community. We decided to hold the series of webinars because we know families and people with disabilities were looking for different options to live independently in the community. And we know that people want to know how to start that process. Once they are living in the community, what types of services and supports can they get, which are so very important. We know as not only family members, but people with disabilities that it can be challenging to find the right supports and services that you might need, but you got to start someplace. So we are hoping that by bringing this information to you, that it could make it a little bit easier to find the services and supports that you need and to really overcome all of those barriers. We also know that one of the best ways to get started is to talk with your family care case manager or your IRIS consultant. So you may be thinking like, well, who do I go to? Well, we want you to be sure that you're reaching out to those people because those are the people who can support you to get independent living options put into your person-centered plan. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tammy, who's going to introduce our speakers and get us started.
All right, we've got 2 great speakers lined up for you today. First, we'll be hearing from Angie Sarver, who works for Opportunity, Inc. Angie's been with Opportunity, Inc. for nearly 6 years, most recently as the Community Supported Living Manager. And she has a passion for supporting people to be as independent as possible in their own homes. She uses a unique ability to help people find their strengths and overcome barriers, even in seemingly the most difficult circumstances. Angie has been a huge asset to Opportunity, Inc., and we are looking forward to hearing about her work today. Our second presenter will be Michael Doset from Night Owl, and he has been a Madison, Wisconsin resident since 2010. First beginning in the world of healthcare IT at Epic Systems. He has focused in the business arena on building on his healthcare experience and has a strong background in understanding systems and administration around medical models, and has now brought all of that expertise to Night Owl. His passion and commitment to building and developing relationships offers a strong dynamic to the people and the families whom Night Owl supports. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Angie, and she'll take us away.
Hi, everyone. As they said, I'm the Community Supported Living Manager for Opportunity, Inc. So my main part of my job is helping people to live in their own homes. I truly believe that anybody can live in their own home with the right supports. So I've been able to help many people transition into their own apartments, their own homes that didn't think that they would be able to do that. Some of them were living in adult family homes. They thought maybe that was their only option. Once they got into the adult family homes, we were able to build on the strengths and the skills that they had in order to help them move into their own home. I've also helped people that have been living with families transition into their own homes. There's been some unique ways that we've been able to do that. I know that sometimes it's scary for family members that have been helping to support somebody to think of them in their own apartment or their own home setting, and how is that going to look. We've been able to go in and start working with the member while they're still at home, so we can help develop those skills and strengths while they're still at home, so that they can get comfortable with the staff. We can see what they're going to need help with once they're on their own. And so that's been helpful. Families have found that helpful, and members have found that helpful to work that way. There's a lot of benefits for people to be able to live on their own. I'm not sure if I can move this screen along. Okay, there we go. Can you click to the next slide, please? So there's a lot of benefits for people being able to live on their own. Obviously, they get to have more of a set schedule, their own schedule, instead of living on the family schedule or even the adult family home schedule. It's better family relationships. You get to move from being that caregiver who's been doing all that support to just being mom, dad, brother, sister. And so that really helps that relationship. Once you're on your own, many people find friendships, relationships with those around them, and it builds their self-esteem and their self-confidence to be able to have something. They're so proud when they're out on their own, in their own home, doing their own thing, and that's been great to see for people. Then if you could change slides, thank you. So how do you make that transition, right, from being in an adult family home or being into your family's home to looking at moving into your own home? So there's not a specific plan. Everybody's different. So you really have to start by identifying their skills and what barriers there are, so that you can develop a really good plan. So maybe they just need help with medication management, or maybe they just need help with cooking. It's just identifying the areas that they need help with. And of course, listening to family members and their concerns and what they're worried about for the member when they move out on their own. Everybody needs to be working towards the same goal. So that's the case team, the family, the member, and then whatever provider is going to help assist with that. And then it's really just about what we can do to help the person be successful. If you want to click slides. So there's a variety of different supports. So the one that I manage is our CSL, Community Supported Living. So that's really flexible supports. We have members that we go in 5, 6, 7 times a day. We can provide a wide range of supports. I don't think people realize how much that we can actually do in the homes. We can help with bathing, dressing, cooking, cleaning, med management, going to the grocery store, taking them to doctor's appointments. There's on-call supports in case something happens in between visits. Visits can range from, some people just need a 15-minute check to some people need a couple hours at a time to get their cares and their needs met. There's also supported home care that's available. That is more of a structured program where it's somebody that just needs a certain amount of time. Maybe they need 2 hours on Tuesdays for cleaning, or maybe they just need somebody to take them to the grocery store. But they're able to do a lot more for themselves and just need minimal supports. My program, we often work hand in hand with some other services. So some of my members receive CSL, but they also go to day services. So day services is also available to them. That's where they can go to a center or out in the community with other members and do activities, make friends. We also have a Building Full Lives program. Several of my members are in that. And that's where you get people together that have like interests. We have like a fishing group. That's our biggest one that's been most popular. We've hooked people up together that all like to fish. They're able to then Now a lot of them go together. They don't even need staff to go with them anymore. They're able to go on their own. They've built those friendships. We've helped people get into work programs if people want to work once they get into their own apartment. I know Night Owl is going to talk a lot more about the technology piece, but we do use technology in conjunction with CSL supports. And some of our members in CSL also want to further their education, go on to school, and we can assist them with that as well with the CSL supports. Some things that you need to think about when considering moving out onto your own, there's definitely an adjustment period. So when people move out, it's a change for them, it's a change for family, and so you have to allow for that adjustment period. And just because there might be setbacks, that doesn't mean that it's a failure. We've had people that just need their plan changed a little bit, or maybe we thought that their skills were developed and they were able to do something on their own, and we find that they still need some work in some areas, and we can help them with that. The nice thing about CSL, it's flexible, and we can make changes as we need to make sure that they're successful. So that is really what CSL is all about and what supports that we offer or we work with.
Thank you. I do not see any questions in the chat at this time, but please do post questions in the chat if you have them, and we will have both of our presenters at the end available to answer any questions. So I'm gonna give a 5-second pause before thanking Angie for her presentation. And we will turn it over to Michael to talk about Night Owl.
Perfect. All right. And it looks like Caitlin just put in a link to the presentation there from Angie's presentation in the chat. So that's awesome. All right. Great job, Angie. I think that's a lot of good stuff you mentioned that we're going to be able to follow up on. Before I get started, as I start pulling up our presentation, I've got one of the owners and founders of Night Owl, Chris Patterson. You might see his face on the presentation later on, but he's going to speak a little bit as I'm pulling this up here.
Yeah, hi folks. Just wanted to mention, and Michael will say some of this, but we've been doing what is called remote supports now. It's been through a change of terminology, but we feel like remote supports is really the best term we've come up with, and for quite some time. We've actually just celebrated 20 years of support. We started at the Wiseman Center, you said, and just in Dane County, and we've expanded quite a bit since then. And as we got this started, myself and two other partners had a background working with people with disabilities. And when we first got things going, we thought, supporting somebody with technology is very innovative, and the whole goal and still is for people to be as independent as possible. But at that time, we thought it was just for the people that really could, be on their own for a certain amount of time, or had a lot of skills where they're really independent already. And what we've learned throughout the years is it works for a variety of people and abilities. And I feel that 20 years ago, we would have thought, over half of the people that we support, we would have said no to. So just keep your minds open, and we take each case one by one. It's certainly not something for everybody, but I've been amazed of the people it's worked for, and worked really, really well. And people have been able to, gain the independence and not have to rely on staff 24/7 in numerous cases. So just wanted to share that with you as we get going. We've done this for a long time, but it's new to everybody out there who's just getting started and in the position that you're in. So I will be quiet and let Michael go from there.
We'll see about that for the rest of the presentation. But yeah, so Chris did a good job setting the scene. One other thing I want to set the scene or want to talk about before getting started. This is the title screen you see up there. Usually, hey, a title screen is up there for a second and you get right past it. But that little tagline, it's much more than technology. You know, Angie mentioned we are going to talk a little bit about the technology options that are out there for folks. But remote supports is definitely more than just the technology itself. There's a human element to everything we do. A lot of what Angie was saying applies to us as well. Chris mentioned it, everyone's different, everyone's situation is different. So we really focus on the person and what that person needs in their home and in their situation. And then we use the technology that we have to make the right choices from there. So we'll get into more of that as well, but I want to kind of set the stage that remote supports has technology as part of it, but it's just one small piece of the pie. All right, Chris stole a lot of my thunder for this slide, which is great. Chris mentioned our roots based in the University of Wisconsin, the Weissman Center. And we apologize, there's some weed whacking going on outside just as I started talking. So if you're having a hard time hearing, I can repeat something. But with that said, those three, you see Chris's bright and smiling face on the bottom right. On top is Danny Chilson. Bottom left is Dwayne Temple. These are the three owners and founders of Night Owl. Between the three of them, they have over 90 years of experience working with people with disabilities. Our admin team has over 200 years of experience working with people with disabilities. I don't say that to brag, but just to say that we're not some Silicon Valley group. We're not some group that developed, you know, some technology and thought, hey, this would be an interesting industry to get into. As Chris mentioned, everything we do is based in experience and passion. You know, I have two brothers with learning disabilities myself. You have a sister that was, I think, our second client ever. So everything we do is really drives and is driven by that experience and passion we have. And we really do focus on increasing the independence for the people we support and improving their outcomes. Our mission is a lot of the same. We want to creatively use the technology that's at our disposal to support the people we support and allow them to live with more independence. Why people use remote supports, that word independence is going to be used a lot today. That's always been the goal, is to allow people to live with a little bit more freedom, a little bit more independence than they've been able to live with over the years. Because we feel that everyone should live the way that they want to live to the greatest extent that's possible. So independence is always going to be goal number one. If that's always going to be goal number one, goal 1A is safety and security. We want to make sure that you're living safely and securely. You can't truly be independent if you're not safe and secure. So we want to make sure that your safety is taken care of as well. And then lastly, relationship building. You know, I think when it comes to a remote service like this, or a service with a lot of technology, it's easy to think that you might have less relationships with the people that are caring for you. But that's just not the case. We found that we were able to build a lot of relationships with the people we support. These are not stock photos. This is a gentleman on the right that we've supported for years. And on the left is Crystal, one of the leads in our monitoring station. Crystal has great relationships with a lot of people we support, just like the rest of the people that work here at Night Owl. So we're still able to really build connections with folks as we support them over time. All right, so at this point, I usually try to get into a definition of what remote supports is to try and tell you what it is, because it is a newer service to a lot of people. But I want to take a step back, and specifically a step back into the past for a little bit, and talk about some other situations where, you know, maybe the industry was using, you know, the best practice at the time, the thing that was considered, you know, the top of the line best practice in terms of caring for people with disabilities. But there could have been a newer or existing but alternative service that could have been the better choice to go with, even if that best practice had the best intentions as well. So first, we're going to go to the age of institutions. This is really the 1800s to the mid 1900s. These institutions, these big buildings, were really seen as burdens on society. And the organizers of these institutions, the ones that really had, you know, good intentions in their heart, their goal was, how can we make these less of a burden on society? Their plan was to over time, reduce costs, make it less costly for society to run these institutions. Well, over time, they reduced more and more costs. It eventually got to the point where the residents, the people who were there, who were supposed to be improving their lives and receiving services, were the ones that were doing all the labor tasks, all the menial maintenance tasks, to try and help the institution save costs and reduce costs. And essentially they became indentured servants and workers at the institutions, again, instead of receiving services. So a better movement, a better choice would have been to move away from the institution rather than just continuing to remove costs. Moving forward into the second and third examples, we move a little bit into the 1970s, the age of the independent living movement when it kind of first started. That individual on the right, that's Robert Persky, he really looked at how risk plays a role in the life of people with disabilities. He felt that, caregivers had really positive feelings when it came to caring for the people they supported. Things, words like protect and comfort and look over and watch over and keep safe. And he felt all of these are great to act on in the right situations. But if used in excess, used too much, if that protect mindset was used all the time, it could lead towards overprotection, emotionally smothering individuals and not allowing them to advance in their lives, to grow and to experience new things. So he really felt that presenting some risk alternatives, some risk experiences did lead to a healthy, independent living that we otherwise wouldn't be able to provide people with if we protected them from risk at every single turn. So risk in the right situations and supported along the way can lead to some really healthy living options. And then lastly, Dr. Lou Brown on the bottom there, he actually used to work at the University of Wisconsin. He passed away a few years ago, but we're very fond of him and familiar with his work here at Night Owl. He really specialized in special education. And at the time in the 70s, incrementalism was the way to go. So you would really work on a pre-vocational activity, a prerequisite class, and then you'd have to pass that before moving on to the next. Well, some individuals just didn't have the skills to ever complete those pre-vocational activities, and they never got the chance to experience and learn more. A good example is counting change. Some individuals just couldn't get exact change counting down, and then they weren't able to move on to the rest of the lessons. Well, Lou Brown thought this was nuts. Some people were working on counting change for about 10 years or so. And he coined the phrase that pre-vocational, pre means never. So he said, hey, why don't we just adapt the lessons? Let's see if we could have people know when to expect change rather than know the exact change to get back. And that could allow them to move on and further live more independently. So really, these are just 3 examples of how the industry was using what was considered the best practice at the time, and things were probably, really positive for most of that time, but there were some newer services that could really help individuals take that next step in terms of living, more independently and living their full, healthy lives. All right, with that said, I do want to talk about what remote supports is, because we feel that remote supports is one of those newer services, those alternative services that could really, help someone reach that next level of the goals they're working towards and just their independent living. Remote supports, it's new. Some people might know a little bit, might know a lot. We got together with some other remote support companies and created a definition so that what remote supports really is when someone is talking about it. And I brought some of the key points here on the screen. So remote supports, it's a tech-based service that allows for trained remote support professionals, or RSPs, to deliver support from a remote location. These RSPs, they're awake and alert, and they're only focused on providing remote supports during the time that they're working in the monitoring station. Remote support should always be selected by an individual and their team and incorporated into their plan. And remote supports are not intended as a wholesale substitute for any care that someone is currently receiving. It works best when it combines with care, with a lot of the stuff that Angie and her team could provide. combined with a service like this, that's when it really works best. So when I get to this screen, if there's one thing to take away after hearing all of that, it's kind of going back to that first message that the word technology is really only on this screen once at the very beginning. It's just the tools that we use to allow people to live their, their independent life and to become more independent overall. All right, with that said, I want to give you just a quick, insight into what makes up Night Owl's remote support services. So you get a little bit of info on what the service is made up of, and then we'll hopefully leave enough time so that Angie and us can answer some questions as well. So we've broken down what makes our service into 5 components. As you see, technology is definitely one of them, but there's a lot more to it. And in the middle of this is not some big piece of technology. It's not a computer. It's not a it's not a tablet, it's not a phone, it's not something else, it's a person. So every person we support is at the center of everything we do. So I'm going to start over on the left, the top left, and talk about our remote support professionals. These are our day-to-day champions that are supporting the people that we support. These individuals, they go through the same trainings that direct in-home staff go through, things like HIPAA and abuse and neglect, all the way down to bloodborne pathogens, CPR, and other medical things if something were to happen. But these individuals are monitoring the devices that we have in your home and then taking the appropriate action. Maybe that action is reaching out. Maybe the action is calling someone that's nearby in the neighborhood to come by and help you with something. But what tells our staff what to do is our individualized protocols. These protocols we create from the very beginning. As Angie mentioned, things change and everyone's situation is different. So we're going to work with people to identify what our staff should do in certain situations. Let me tell you a quick example. We've got a very small, discrete device that we use that's a door sensor. We put it on a door, and if a door gets opened, it just lets us know. For one person, maybe you're allowed to go out in the backyard. Maybe you smoke cigarettes and you go out there, and if you get back in, maybe that door opening doesn't really, our staff won't have anything to do if that's the case. But for someone else using that door sensor, maybe down the street for a different situation, maybe when that person goes outside, they get disoriented or they get easily confused. And for that person, our staff might take a different action, might call someone to come over and help you get back inside your home. These individuals, they're in constant contact with our folks. Not constant contact, but contact when it's needed. So looking for those situations in the plans we create when we need to reach out, and again, paying attention to the devices in the home. And then lastly, they send those folks, the responders we call them, but local individuals, people in your area that can come over and help you at your home if you need it. All right, from there, our second piece, the second component is a central monitoring station. This is the place where our RSPs work. This is the remote support professionals. This is their home base. It has all the technology for them to use to support you in the right way. It's a secure facility with multiple redundancies. We've got backup power generators, duplicate phone and internet servers, down to a secondary location if, knock on wood, a big storm happens or something catastrophic were to happen to this location. And those backups are great because we've recently moved to supporting people up to 24/7, 365. So at all times of the day. Our name is Night Owl. For 18 plus years, we only supported people at night, but we've recently moved to supporting people during the day. And that really came about during COVID. People weren't going to their jobs or day programs, and we needed to provide some extra support as people stayed home. That just continues to be what we can offer. We offer flexibility. We still support most of the people we support during the nighttime hours, but we are able to support people during the day and kind of as needed. Maybe your caregiver got sick. Maybe a family member who's caring for you has to run out to the store or something. We can really support you until your support comes back. All right. The third piece is the technology. I want to talk a little bit about our technology and then get into some concrete examples of devices that we can put into your home to help you live a little bit more independently. So first and foremost, our tech is what we call sensor-based. What does that mean? Our sensors, our devices tend to be smaller, kind of behind the scenes, discreet, out of the way. We feel your home should feel like home even with technology in it. So we really just want to be there to provide support if the situation calls for it. The second meaning to sensor-based is that we don't provide internal cameras inside your home. We're not going to put a camera inside your bedroom or your living room and constantly watch you. That's a privacy thing. We feel like you should have a little bit more privacy than that. There might be some devices that have cameras in them that we could use in certain situations, but we're not going to constantly watch you on a camera. We want you to live more independently and live with a little bit of privacy. From there, I mentioned we have redundancies and backups in our monitoring station. We have redundancies in the devices as well. So we have a battery backup in all the devices if something were to happen at the home with the power. We have a cell card backup if anything were to happen with the communication from the devices to us. And then we have tamper evident sensors as well. If you bump into a device and maybe it falls off off the wall or it breaks, it's no big deal. We'll know right away. We can work with your staff and your team to get a replacement device out there. And the great thing about these redundancies is that the system lets us know when it happens. So, living in Wisconsin, we all know it gets cold, right? In the winter, every week it seems like that. Every winter it seems like there's a week where it's 25 below. It's just a fact of life. It happened last winter. It's probably going to happen this winter too. If we're supporting you on one of those nights and we get a notification that the battery backup has been started, that there's something happening with the power in the home, we know we need to get someone over to your house, make sure you've got heat for the night, make sure that you're safe and secure to stay there while the power is being worked on. So you can have a million redundancies, you can have all the backups in the world that you'd like, but if you don't know when they're being used, it's not as efficient as it could be. Lastly, our tech is portable and adaptable. It's very easy if you were to move to a new place. Let's say you start using it where you live now, but then you move out to a new location. It's very easy for our devices to go with you, to be moved to a new location. There's no big construction costs. There's going to be no big holes left in the wall when you take the devices with you. So very portable in that way. And then adaptability, Angie mentioned this as well, and I think it's a great thing to keep in mind. We're going to try and get your plan right the first time, but sometimes we're going to have to make changes, and especially over time as we see how your life might be changing as you're living more independently. So if we need to make changes to the devices that you have in your home, maybe this device is better over here. Maybe you need one less of this device and a different one. Maybe we want to change what the devices do. It's very easy for us to make changes to the devices and your system and your plan so that you're getting the right support you need. All right, I'm going to take a step away from that slide just for a second and talk about some common devices we put into homes, some specific devices that we use to support individuals like yourselves. So first and foremost, the first two we put in almost every single home. The first one is the two-way communication panel. That's the panel on that's the third picture from the left. It's got a number pad in the middle. It's got some speaker holes on the left. This device is really the hub of all of the other devices. All of the other devices you see on here talk to this panel, and then the panel talks to us. More importantly, it does offer us the capability to have two-way audio communications. We can talk to you through this device in certain situations to see if everything's going okay, if you need a little help with something, or if you just want to have a conversation. We can have that through this device. Secondly, smoke detectors, we're going to assume your homes already have them, and that's good. And we don't want you to do anything about those smoke detectors. We don't want you to remove them or anything like that. But we're just going to add one of ours as well, so that we'll know immediately if your smoke detectors go off, ours are going to go off as well. So we'll know pretty immediately if something happens with smoke. From there, it's just some common devices. I mentioned our door sensor already. We have window sensors as well. These are very small devices that go on your door or window, and it tells us when they've been opened, if they're not supposed to be opened, during a certain time. Second, we have bed and movement sensors. These are really cool devices that go under your mattress, and it's very hard to feel it. It's not gonna feel like you're sleeping on a big lump. It's no Princess and the Pea situations if you've read that story before. What these devices are very helpful. One device will tell us if you've been out of bed for a certain amount of time and might need help getting back to it. And then the movement version will tell us if someone has an event like a seizure at night. Sometimes those are really scary. Those are really hard to know when those happen at night. And this sensor will let us know if it notices you having an event like a seizure. From there, we have personal pagers. I call this the Get Our Attention button. It's a very small button that you could wear around your wrist. You could wear it around your neck on a lanyard, kind of like a necklace. We could put it on a wall or a table. It's a very small button, but if you press it, it gets our attention, and we can have a conversation with you for any variety of reasons, whether you need help with something, maybe there's a storm happening and you're a little scared. For whatever reason, that's going to get you in touch with us, and we can help you from there. That big red button all the way on the left, that big red square, that's just a version of that pager that's easier to hit, easier to press. You can press it with your elbow if you have trouble with using your hands, or maybe your feet as well. It's really for people who have trouble pressing a smaller button, if you will. From there, we've got motion detectors. We have fall sensors, flood and moisture sensors. That's the small disc on the right. If sometimes you accidentally clog up your sink or your toilet, this device, if it's next to it, it's going to tell us right away. It's going to tell your staff, and we'll be able to fix it sooner. We'll be able to help you get out of that situation. And from there, the last two, I just want to spend a little extra time on. So the smart Med Dispenser, that's the third picture from the left. It's the big circle with the blue rectangular screen in the middle. This is a device where it can really help you take your own medications if that's a goal that you're working towards. So this device, it's got a clear plastic top on it, but your staff can help get this set up for you in the little compartments around the outside. That's where your medications go, your pills, and then the times to take those pills are programmed into this device. When it's time for you to take your meds, this device, it's going to chime, it's going to give you a notification, it's going to let you know, but it's also going to let us know as well, so we can help you with a reminder if you need it. If you happen to forget to take your meds, we can reach out and say, hey, have you taken your meds today? And then you can go to this device and get your pills from there. So this is a device that's really good, again, if you're working towards the goal of taking your own medications. But again, we're here to help with reminders so that you get to that point. And then lastly, I mentioned that we don't put cameras inside your home or your bedroom or anywhere else that we're going to monitor all the time. But there are devices that use cameras that we can incorporate into someone's plan if it makes sense. A great example is a Ring doorbell. A lot of people know what a Ring doorbell is these days, but if you don't, it's a doorbell just like a regular one on the outside of your house that has a camera attached to it. So now, let's say we're in that situation we talked about before with the door sensor on your door. If that door sensor goes off, we know we can access that video feed of that Ring doorbell, and we could see, yep, we see out there, it looks like you're just kind of having a conversation, or you're having you're smoking your cigarette. Or if there's a situation we see that's not great, we can then interact in the appropriate manner. So really, that's just to say that as we're not putting devices with cameras in your home, there are ones that are out there that can make sense. Another example is an Amazon Echo Show. This is like a small TV with Alexa in it, Amazon's Alexa products. With that device, we could have two-way video conversations, just like we're having here as well. So really, it just offers a different way to communicate with you that we can incorporate if it makes sense. All right, I'm going to wrap up with the last couple slides here so that we leave some time for some questions. The last two components are on the bottom. The responder piece, I mentioned we're going to know if someone needs somebody to go over to your home. And to that point, we're going to try to identify who that person is from the very beginning. We're going to work with your team to see who we could get over to your home in the right situations, where they live, how to get in touch with them, how far away they are, and what to do if we can't. Who's the backup for that as well? There's always going to be situations where that might be the best option. So that's why it's really important for us to identify who this is. This could really be anyone that's part of your care team. It could be a staff member of a residential provider. It could be family, natural support. It could be a friend, someone like that. And we could get very personalized in terms of how we interact with that person as well. If we have time later, maybe we could tell some examples of how we've worked with responders, and I've gotten very creative there as well. Lastly, the last piece is our consumer relations team. This is the glue that holds all of these other pieces together. So all of this is great, but if you don't have a team that's making sure that all of the pieces are tuned in the right way moving forward, you could end up in some trouble. And so this team really looks at that plan that we create. This is the team that creates that plan for you with your team and evaluates it over time if we need to make changes to it. Maybe, maybe they told us that you need to look for help doing something at a certain time, but maybe your schedule changes. Maybe you're doing something different. We can make changes to that plan. I mentioned that the technology, we could change what devices are in your home, what they're doing. This is the team that does that as well. And then they send different data and different information to you and your team so that they can look through it and that you can talk about it. Maybe you're going to the bathroom a lot more. Maybe there's an issue that you could work with your team on to help alleviate that issue. This team, the consumer relations team, is going to give that information to your team. So go ahead.
I just want to add a couple of things with folks who may be looking to move out. What's kind of common or what we see a lot of the younger generation might want to use some of those assistive technology, like an iPad, for example. So they might want to FaceTime us. We have a young gentleman who doesn't need a lot of staff, but he forgets to take his meds. He forgets to take his showers on a regular basis. So our staff actually interact with him on his iPad a couple times a day and just check in with that. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there. That video feed, what we're really careful about the privacy, as Michael said, but the younger generation seems to like that more. So that is available if they have that device. We don't supply those normally. We just tie into whatever they have. So if that's a FaceTime on your cell phone, if that's an iPad, if that's an Alexa, we can tie into any of those with our staff as well. The other thing that happens a lot when people move out for the first time is you might not know how people are going to adjust, right? There's like as Angie mentioned, there's kind of a transition period where we don't know. It might be the first time somebody's, in their own apartment and has so much alone time or whatever it may be. So we can actually program any sensor that we have to track. So if it's not a safety concern that somebody's in the kitchen, for example, like they're not going to overeat, they might not have Prader-Willi syndrome, but you might want to know, like, are they, getting up to get in the refrigerator 5 times a night? That could certainly be an issue. We're never going to restrict that without, permission and going through all the proper channels. We're never, ever going to put a lock on a fridge or a food cabinet, but we could track that so you can talk to them, talk to people later to say, maybe, I see you're getting up, 3 times a night to get into the fridge, what's going on? So there are certain ways we can program stuff that really helps families know, even like how many times is your son or daughter going to the bathroom? Well, we probably don't need to know that as a monitoring staff, but you might want to know it as a family and can just kind of see activity from certain tracking sensors that we can record the data, but we're not going to monitor. So I hope that makes sense. But just some common things that happen a lot of times when people move out is we might over censor stuff, and then pull back a little bit just to make the safeguards are in place. The data's, you know, you can collect the data, but then maybe we start pulling that back as time goes on. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, you know, your life is going to change as you're, you know, encountering new services and new support. So we're going to change with you, and that's really the idea behind that. All right. The last slide here that has a lot of info on it is really just kind of speaking to, again, a lot of what Angie talked about, a lot that we share a lot of those ideals with her and her organization as well, that really everyone is different when we think about who might be a right fit for a service like this. We're going to identify what you're currently receiving in terms of services. You know, we're going to identify any current needs and concerns that you might have, any goals that you're working towards that maybe we could help with. We're going to, again, consider where those responders are, how far away those local individuals are that can get over to your home if the situation calls for it. But at the end of the day, we're going to rely on you and your team to help us develop that plan, and really know what we should be doing and looking out for when you're living on your own and using our services. So everyone is different. Going back to that first bullet, we're going to be the first ones to tell you if we don't think this service is right for you, because the last thing we want to do is introduce you to a new service that's going to make your life a little bit less independent, or not really allow you to work towards some of the goals you're working on and advance your life in a healthy way. So if we think there's a different opportunity that might be better, we'll do our best to lead you in that direction. But really, we assess everyone on an individualized basis. Everyone's situation is unique to them, and we take that seriously when we're evaluating if this is the right service for somebody. And that's really essentially it. This is kind of a summary to show that, again, at the center of everything we do is not a big piece of technology. It's not the door sensor. It's not a motion sensor. It is you. It is a person. You drive everything we do, from, you know, how we install the devices to how we work with your team and how we create that plan. You are at the center of everything we do. So that's it. You know, that's if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I think Angie and I are going to be, and us, we're all going to be here for some questions for the next few minutes. That info email is a great way to get in touch with us. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you guys today and share some of the information about our services.
Thank you for your presentation. We do have a few questions in the chat, and for both presenters, but I will stick with our friends at Night Owl first. We have a question about, are the fall sensors wearable or motion sensors related?
Can you say that? We're not, I guess we're not seeing the same ones you are, which is, we'll just rely on you. But can you, I'm sorry, Tammy, can you say that again?
We have a question about your fall sensors. Do you have wearable fall sensors, or are they motion sensor related for detecting falls?
Yeah, so the fall technology right now, it has to be like a necklace pendant, because if somebody, and we have, for our personal pagers that aren't fall sensors, you can have a wrist watch. A lot of people prefer that, but that will not work with a fall sensor, because if I take my wrist and just go like this, it will detect it. So it has to be the lanyard. There are other things we've done, you know, with motion sensors, if somebody won't wear it, or a bed sensor at, you know, where we can maybe identify what maybe routine is for tonight, or if we get you know, a motion sensor and then don't get another one for 20 minutes, for example, we might have a concern that they've fallen. So we've done both.
Okay, another question for you at Night Owl. Do any of your technologies require any particular phone, cell, or internet service?
Yeah, so I'll say when it comes to internet and Wi-Fi, we try to avoid our technology using that, because sometimes that could be unreliable. especially in, what's that?
The medication
Yeah,
box.
the medication dispenser does, the circular dose box does. But overall, especially if maybe you're in a more rural or secluded area of the state, Wi-Fi sometimes is spotty, not super reliable. A lot of those updates are happening at night when we're supporting most of the people we support. So I'll say that we tend to use either inherent phone lines in a home if it's old enough, or more digital phone lines, kind of like phone lines through a router, if you will. And then we have a cell card backup in the main device that can be used if for an extended period of time, if something were to happen to the phone line, or if there isn't one. But again, it's normally used as a backup to the phone line.
Final question for me for Night Owl, and then we'll jump to Angie, and then we'll jump to Sally, who's got some questions. How are Night Owl services typically paid for under family care or IRIS?
Yeah, I can take this. So we're contracted with all the family cares, and then with Iris, I think as Sally said in the beginning, or Tim, I'm sorry who said that, but reach out to your consultant. And we are, we work with each person, get on each plan to get authorization. So it is paid for by both. If you're on Iris and you've already exceeded your budget or expended your budget, then your consultant has to do what's called a BA, a budget amendment. The majority of the time, I guess I don't know of any that haven't got approved. I mean, obviously they're not going to give you a service if it's not needed. But if it's a needed service, it usually does get approved. And in the IRIS world, it has gotten approved as far as I know every time. And then with family care, if you reach out to your care coordinator, if they feel it's an appropriate service, then we get the authorizations from that particular family care.
Last question for me, and this one's for Angie. It's a question specifically about does ODC bill at all under the adult daily living training for your services, or do you also do it also bill under the community supported living services?
So we're billed under the community supported living services.
I'm going to interject before I give it to Sally to have everyone note that Caitlin just put a link into the survey, and we'd love for you to fill that out. I'm going to turn it to Sally for some more questions, and I'm sure she'll remind you about the survey too. So get in on this on the front end. So when Sally reminds you, you've already got it done.
All right, great. We had some other questions. You talked about who pays for it, so that's good. There was a question about how would the two-way communication panel work for someone with limited mobility or a very close to being nonverbal for a night owl?
Yeah, I think that's just one example of how we can communicate with individuals. If someone's nonverbal,
I'll give an example of a gentleman who had he had 3 separate buttons actually, and each button meant something else for us. So it's hard to say, this is your answer for everybody, but like that's a really good example of how we adapted to that. We had one button where he needed something right away, like needed to be changed, whatever. He had another button where he felt like, I'm going to need to get up in a half an hour. He was actually bedbound. And then another button that said, when somebody has time, can they check on us? And that comes, each button came up with those notes for our staff. So we can try to get creative. If we don't hear somebody on that two-way, we'll try to, if they have another device, whether it be just a house phone, a cell phone, another device, we'll try that next. And if we don't hear from them, and they're reaching out to us, we're going to send that responder. So there are certainly times where that's happened, where maybe they haven't been able to hear us or vice versa, where we will send that staff or that close by person to go check on them if we can't establish that communication.
A lot, yeah, we text with a lot of people we support. A lot of people we support really do like and are
They'd
able
rather
to
text.
use their cell phone. They'd rather do that. So we can accommodate that as well.
That's great. And then for Angie, someone wanted to know about signing up for your program. And so I had put in where you were located, but maybe, and that there are other providers, but maybe just tell people where you kind of your service area and how they might get signed up with Opportunity.
So to get signed up with Opportunity, you would go to your MCO or your IRS, whatever program, care managed program you're with, you would go to them to get signed up. I provide support in the Wisconsin Rapids, Nakusa, Port Edwards area, but we also have CSL supports in the Wausau Weston area. And then we have other programs to our day services and building full lives and adult family homes as well in those areas.
Again, there are other providers doing similar services. So like Angie said, reaching out to your care team or your IRIS consulting agency are the best ways to do that. So I'm just going to check with Caitlin because it seems like we all each got maybe some questions. So just to make sure Caitlin didn't have any questions that were outstanding.
I do have just one, and it is, are these services, both from Opportunities and from Night Owl, offered in Spanish or other languages?
So no, we don't have an interpreter on staff. We do have a couple of our staff that are fluent and are trying to work on that. So that is certainly something we're trying to address for the future. It is hard with the technology, again, like that example I gave before. You know, a lot of times if we know we need to send somebody or know there's an issue, we can do it like that, but we do not have an interpreter on staff 24/7.
Yeah, at this moment. Yeah.
So it's pretty much the same for Opportunity as it is for them. We do have some staff that speak Spanish, but we do not have an interpreter as well. I do know there's apps and things that you could also use in our program to help with interpreting.
Excellent. Okay.
I got one question while you're here. I think it's more for Night Owl. How quickly can responders reach the person if there is a need for a response?
Well, I'll say it really depends on where that person's located. You know, we obviously want them as close as possible. I think anything further than like 20-25 minutes away, you're starting to really affect the services and the support that we're going to be able to provide. But on the flip side of that, we support a lot of people who live in duplexes, and that staff member might be on the other side of the duplex. And in that case, it's a minute, less than a minute for someone to get over there. It's really going to depend again on where that person, who that person is, and where they're going to be, and then how long it takes for them to get there is actually something we're going to ask, and is going to really affect how we support individuals. So it's really we'd be looking at you and your team for that.
And I'll add one thing real quick that with the cost, like people can reach out to us and ask and talk about scenarios. We don't charge until we actually start services and put equipment in the home. So if you have like this may work, or just want to ask us questions, we're certainly available to do that. And we do all that consultation for free, and like Michael said, we might send you to another thing, or just say all you needed this is from Best Buy, and just go to Best Buy and get this. And so we do our best to try to point people in the right direction.
Excellent. That's great. Well, we're at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to thank our presenters, and we really appreciate you joining us. Next week, we'll be here at the same time on Tuesday from 12 to 1, and we'll be hearing from some family members and a person with a disability who have successfully moved to independent living. Please take a moment to complete the survey. It is in the chat in Spanish and English. So grab that link before we end. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, everyone.